Okay, so welcome everybody to today's discussion on utilizing data. Data is a powerful tool for highlighting successes in a CTE program. Today we're going to learn how to use your data to pull together resources that help advocate for your program to a variety of stakeholders. We're very pleased to have our discussion hosted today by ACTE's past president, Colleen Kepler. Colleen has been a CTE teacher for 31 years and the Perkins coordinator for the Meade School District since 2002. She has served as the South Dakota ACTE Legislative Committee Chair for over 12 years, and she has successfully utilized CTE data sheets and brochures to obtain nearly $150,000 in grants for upgrades to her school. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Colleen.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks to everyone for, excuse me, for joining us today. And what I'm going to do, I have my screen, I'm sharing my screen with you right now. But what I would like to do is, excuse me, is have you introduce yourself, and then what is your goal for this session? And because then at the end, then we'll go back and we'll make sure that we covered what everyone was hoping to learn from this. So I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint so that I can type in your goals. And so if you would like to introduce yourself and what your goal is, that would be great.
I'm Lanessa Keene from Lee Deadwood School District, and I think my goal is to just better understand what we can do for our school district as far as our approved programs.
Okay, thanks, Lanessa. So I have better understand what we can do for our school district and programs?
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Kathy. I'm calling from Elgin Community College in Elgin, Illinois. And we just went through a PTR project in which we were consumed with a lot of data. So we just want to know how better to use the data. And then what other data points should we be gathering or collecting through our institutional research division?
Okay. So I have how to better use the data and what other data we should be collecting?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Victoria Crownover, and I'm the new Perkins Plan Manager here in Colorado for the state, and I'm just curious to learn more about how we can use data to help paint a picture, both at the state level and to help recipients of the funds understand how they can use the metrics to make change in their programs.
Okay.
So data for storytelling.
Okay, so learn more about how to use data to paint a picture at the state level and help recipients understand how they can use data to make changes in their programs.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone else?
I think that's it, Colleen.
Okay. So then the next question I have for you, and I think your goals have addressed this, but just in case there's anything else, is why do you think CTE educators need to understand and use data?
Well, I think someone said it earlier because the data tells a story, but also I think the programs that we're implementing are being measured. I mean, there are metrics that are associated with those. And so in order for us to be able to determine how successful our programs are working, we have to be able to use the data to measure that.
Okay, good. Anything else? All right. Okay. I have to get back to share my screen, so excuse me just a second. Well, that's not the one I wanted to share. Let me get there. I really did practice with Zoom. I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, so here's our goals that we discussed, and then why we need to understand and use data. And then I broke it down into these categories for program improvement, for formulating your department goals, justifying your funding request, supporting anecdotal stories, and illustrating the value of career and technical education. And so at any time, if you have questions or comments, please jump in and feel free to add to the discussion. So these are some things that I came up with just in what I've done here at Sturgis Brown High School and with South Dakota. So when we're looking at program improvement, you had mentioned the matrix that we need to look at. And so are we meeting the content standards? Are the current teaching methodologies working? What changes do we need to make? What percentage of our students are meeting the Perkins standards of performance? How do our CTE students compare to our non-CTE students, and then the school and state as a whole? And this is really huge, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but especially when you're looking at graduation and completion rates, this is a big selling point for promoting your program and looking at how are your students doing overall. Are there any other things that you would add to this slide as far as the program improvement?
No, I think that's good.
And the key thing is that and you're aware of this based on the goals that you expressed earlier, but answering these questions helps you develop your program goals and track your progress in reaching them. And then the CTE Department Goals, you compare the CTE data to the overall school data. And what I do at the end of every school year is once I have all the Perkins data entered and I'm able to print out the reports, I go through and I summarize them by each of the Perkins standards. I look at our CTE enrollment compared to the overall school enrollment. And then I also compare how are our CTE concentrators doing compared to the school as a whole, and then also those students that haven't taken a CTE course or are not a concentrator. I also document all of our industry certifications. We have students, every student who is in a class with a lab or a shop setting for CTE is required to complete the OSHA certification, and we do that through CareerSafe. And if they must pass it or they're not going to participate in any of the lab and shop activities. We also do the National Career Readiness Certification exam as part of our career planning course, which is required for graduation. So every junior participates in that certification process. We also have the AWS certification is available, and then through our ag classes we have the pesticide applicator licensure, And then we also have the ServSafe and ProStart certifications are available, although we haven't had any students take advantage of that yet. And then we've also got a first aid and CPR certification that we look at. And so all of that is put into that overall school data report. And then that is shared with all of our CTE department members, as well as our administration here at the high school and the superintendent. And then also, if I see any areas of concern, things that we need to take a closer look at, or things that, hey, we did really well on this, I make sure that I highlight those as well. And then every year at Sturgis, we do a data retreat with we do an overall data retreat with the high school staff, but then we also do a separate department meeting that is focused strictly on the data. And we look at each program cluster, their data. We look at how does our data compare to the high school as a whole, and then we formulate goals for our department. And then those goals have to tie into either our Perkins, our high school goals overall, or the district goals. And so I shared with you our 2015 through 2017 goals. And the one thing I did not share with you, but we actually have a matrix that spells out deadlines and who is responsible for each of the items. And one of the things that I would recommend is that if you have a testing coordinator in your school, work very closely with them, because we actually brought her in, and she actually was able to bring up some questions that we kind of took for granted the answers, but when she kept pushing us and we delved a little bit deeper, we went, okay, yeah, these are some things that we need to consider. Does anybody do this in their schools?
Colleen, I can honestly say the only CTE data that we've done as far as looking at the Perkins stuff is when the state has us all come together and we've gone through that. We've never done it as far as, you know, the data retreats we do at our school for the State Department. We've never done a CTE department data retreat locally.
Okay. Well, and this is something that we started, I want to say about 3 years ago. We started the department goals with the data retreat, and it was because I was starting to see a trend, and plus I just wanted to make sure that people were reading the report that I put together. So, but it was great, and it went over so well that we've continued to do it. And the neat thing is that we also have the administrators sit in as long as they're able to. Sometimes they're in and out, and we've also had the counselors come in and sit with us and go through it, so that they're aware of what's going on and what where we want to go with our department. Okay. To justify funding requests was one of the other items that I put up about why CTE instructors and programs need to be utilizing their data. And I hope this is going to work. It worked in the dry run, so we'll see. And hopefully your states have a similar document to this. But our State Department has using data for improving programs. Yay, it worked. Okay, and so what they've done is they've outlined a step-by-step process for schools to be able to utilize, or individual programs to be able to go through and utilize that data to help them formulate their program improvement goals and plans. And they say to compare and document at least 2 years of performance. I try to go through and compare, especially when I'm looking for trends. I look at 5 to 6 years out, just because, you know, sometimes you have that group of kids that's really active and really involved, and then sometimes you get a group of kids that this isn't very they're here, they want the diploma and they want out. That's the best way to put it. And so what can you control? What can't you control? What you can control is what you need to be focusing your efforts on. And then it goes through determine and implement solutions, and then evaluate, and then just continue with the steps. And so hopefully your states also have a document similar to this that you can utilize. Okay. If you want to expand a successful program, you can utilize that data to help justify your funding request, whether it's through Perkins or it's at your local level through capital outlay. And so an example is the ProStart Culinary Arts program here at Sturgis. We were able to show the number of students that were successfully completing the program, that were going on either to gainful employment or onto the post-secondary related programs. And then because of that, we were able to get a $10,000 reserve grant back in '09 to help upgrade some of our equipment and to implement the ProStart curriculum, and then also for me to attend the training to get certified in it. And then we're also used that data this past year. We received a governor's grant 2 years ago to start a machining program at our school, and we utilized information from the Sturgis Chamber of Commerce and our Sturgis Economic Development Corporation. In fact, we worked very closely with them and with our school data to show why there was a need for this program. And so we were able to get the governor's grant to get it started. And then because we've seen enrollment grow from 9 students to 28 students per semester, we were able to write a workforce education grant this past year so that we can expand that program. And so again, that data helps you take a current program and expand it to incorporate some more industry standards or industry equipment. But then also if you see a need in your community, how you can implement a new program. And I can't stress enough, if you are not on a first name basis with your Chamber of Commerce, your South Dakota retailers, well, or for us it's the South Dakota retailers, but your Chamber of Commerce people, your State Retailers Association, and then your local Economic Development Corporation, you need to, because they can be your biggest cheerleaders. Plus they'll have some data that you it would take you a while to find, whereas if you call them, they've got it right at their fingertips and they can send it to you. And then anecdotal stories. Has anyone ever been told that's a great story, but do you have the artifacts and data to back it up?
I've not been told that. I've actually asked the question.
Ah, okay. Well, good. That's great. Yeah. And so anecdotal stories, they're great attention getters, and they draw in the person's emotions, but you've got to have the data to pack the punch, to back it up, to really get the attention of the legislators, the policymakers. And I actually had a staff member from Washington, D.C. for one of the South Dakota congressional delegation ask me for the artifacts and data. And so I had it with me at the time, which was good, but it made me realize that you've got to have that data put into an easy to hand out, easy to use format, so that people who aren't tied to education understand what all the acronyms are and get a better understanding of what Perkins is.
And so when you presented your data, did you present it like in charts and whatnot with just maybe a brief narrative around it to kind of reinforce your anecdotal stories, I guess?
What I did at the time was I had a lot of charts and paragraphs, and I believe it was a 3 or 4 page report, and they said, "This is great, can you condense it?" And so I'm going to show you what I did for the state of South Dakota.
Okay.
Next slide. And so just a little bit of background. In 2009, the South Dakota implemented an opportunity scholarship, which provides high school seniors $5,000 over their post-secondary career. There's criteria that they have to meet. But one of the requirements was 2 years of a foreign language. And if you were going to a tech institute, which is similar to a community college in some other states, you still had to have those 2 years of a foreign language. And the people who put the wording together didn't really care that well, if you're going to a tech institute for a CTE degree, they really weren't too concerned about having those courses in high school. And so what I did is I worked with the South Dakota Legislative Committee and some key stakeholders, and I developed this data brochure. Maybe. Let's try this again. Okay. Well, just a second, it's on my desktop. There we go. And so I put together this data brochure. And so this was our 2009 data brochure. And so we had the first page, and then here's the middle. And at that time, our state was into the high schools that work initiative. And so I tied it to the rigor, relevance, relationships, and results. And then we also had an initiative going High School 2025, which also tied into that. So what I did is I tried to explain how does career and technical education fit into all of this. And so you can see it was, a lot of wording, but I did get it from 4, 8 by 10 type sheets of paper. I tried to put in a few more graphs and data comparing the state enrollment to the CTE enrollment, the number of students in the CTSOs. And then you can see that I've got asterisks because I documented where every piece of information came from so that if anybody had questions, they would be able to go right back to that same source that I utilized to be able to recreate that data. What really caught our legislators' eyes is if you look over here at our graduation rates. And so we have the CTE graduates, which was our concentrators. In 2008, we had 97% for CTE compared to 88.39 statewide. And then in 2009, it was 97.27 to 89.21. And then on the back page, I pulled up our data as far as their post-secondary plans. And the legislator said that the graduation rate and this chart were the key factors in them changing the wording, that it would be a foreign language or an approved CTE course, so that our students would be eligible for that opportunity scholarship. And it's consistently been over 75% of our students since I started putting this data information together for the state. So since 2008, over 75% of our students go on to either a 4-year or a 2-year program. And so then the other thing that goes along with that, and I lost my PowerPoint again. Okay. Okay, let me go back to, here we go. Then the other thing that goes along with that is make sure that you update it every year. And so there's a brochure for every single year. This year, I decided to go to just a 1-page infographic, just to jazz it up and make it look a little bit different. And so then this is what we did for this year. This is what was shared with our legislators and the Associated School Board and our Department of Education. And so I still kept 5 years worth of data on there just so they could see the trends. We've got the graduation rate again, and again, you can see the difference between the overall statewide compared to the CTE graduation rate. The secondary placement. And then I put in just some information for them. This section right here was put in based upon the request of one of the legislators, because when the changes were put into place that an approved CTE credit could be used for that scholarship, we had a lot of programs and a lot of schools that made applications to be an approved career and technical education program with the state. And so he wanted to know how many approved programs and in how many schools are there. And so that's where this section was put in, was at his request. And then again, I still listed all of my sources so that if anybody wanted to go back and check the numbers, they were able to do that. If you're not real artistic, I hope you're friends with someone who is. I have a colleague that teaches journalism, and when I told her I wanted to try to put together an infographic, we met at Sturgis Coffee Company here, the local coffee hangout, and had this done in about 30 minutes. I had all of the data, and then she made it look nice. So, do you have any questions? Comments?
No, I actually just sent a couple of questions over the chat, so I'm hoping that you can share electronic copies of those two documents.
Yes, I can. Yeah, in
Awesome.
fact, when you go, this is being recorded and it'll be posted on the website. This is a direct link. It's on the web right now, and then I will make sure that I can send this so that Kate can post it as a link for you to look at as well. Do you want just the 2009, or would you like to see how it's evolved and changed? Because I can share all of those.
All of those would be awesome.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, I will do that.
Colleen, I think this is where I've always gotten stuck in our district. And for the other people that are watching, I actually teach only 12 miles away from Colleen. We've known each other for a long time. But I get that same data you do. And my hurdle every year is getting from what we receive from the state to that awesome brochure that you have every year, and trying to get to understand it, to be able to explain it to not just legislators in our community, but sometimes my staff. They don't understand it either, and I struggle to get to that point. And so any suggestions on how I should do that, or I don't know. Yeah, that's where I come in.
Okay. Well, that's a really good question. I guess it's because I'm so passionate, and of course all the staff here at Sturgis call me a numbers geek and ask me why I wasn't a math major, but but it's something that I'm passionate about, and I try to break it down as simply as I can for them, because I know, some people, as soon as you say the word data, their eyes glaze over, and so trying to break it down into the most simple, easy to understand format. So tell you what, why don't you let me, let's see. Let me show you what I put together for our district. So give me just a second. I'm going to stop sharing for just a moment so that I can find that document and pull it back up.
Well, and if you can't find it, Colleen, that's fine. If you could share it later on,
Yeah,
that
well,
would be
actually,
great.
I have it. I'm just trying to get back into
Oh, okay.
to share my screen.
Okay.
So let's see. There we go. I had it in minimal view, and then I couldn't find where I was going. So. Okay, here we go. And so this is what I share with our department and our administrators. And so you can see that we had 502 students taking at least one CTE course. And we had our official enrollment count was 677. For those of you who don't know, South Dakota has an official enrollment date, and that's when they pull all of our student information from Infinite Campus, and then that is how our Perkins data is set up. So if a student enrolls after that official count date, they won't show up on our list to be able to enter them into Perkins, and so then we have to send the information to the state staff. But so you can see that we had 74.15% of our students were enrolled in at least one CTE course. The number of students that participated in an internship for the year, and this is an unduplicated count because we do have some students that take it both semesters. The number of seniors that completed an internship during their high school career, so we were at almost 50% of our seniors completed an internship before they graduated. And then the number of our seniors that utilized a CTE course or CTSO experience as part of their senior experience. And then we have the National Career Readiness Certificate. The number of students that completed OSHA plus our paraprofessional. We have a learning center that is staffed by a paraprofessional, and she works with students that need a little bit of extra time to complete their OSHA. So she became certified, so she was familiar with the program and was able to help the students. We have a career diploma available to our students. They have to earn 28 credits to graduate, whereas a regular high school diploma is only 25 credits. They have to have completed a youth internship, have no grade less than a C, and then completed 5 courses related to their cluster of study where they completed their internship. And those courses, we had an advisory board meeting where our advisory board members reviewed every course description and then placed it into the clusters as one of the options for the students for the career diploma. And then we have our post-secondary plans by concentrators. And then this is a duplicate count that shows our enrollment by clusters. And then I put a little note down there for them to know that our IT course, which is an introduction to our manufacturing, transportation, and architecture and construction course, students get counted in all 3 of those clusters, so those numbers are a little bit misleading. And then we look at our reading attainment, math, technical skills. And this was something interesting. In the past, we never had the option of putting in a 0 credit for a student. And so I contacted Peer and said, if we have a student who fails the course, they haven't earned that credit, but because you make us put in a 1, it's counting against us in our technical skill attainment, and that's really not right. And so what can we do to fix this? And so their response was, nobody's ever brought that up before. And so this year we actually have the option of you still count them as being in your class, but it's a 0 credit, and then you put in whatever that failing percentage was. So they're accounted for being in your class, but it doesn't count against your technical attainment standard. And then we have the non-traditional participation and completion. and then items that we need to discuss at our department meeting and our data retreat, and then some concerns that I saw through reviewing the data. And so I used to try to keep this to 2 pages, but I realized that to get everything in there and the explanations to help everybody understand it, it was going to end up being a little bit longer. Does that help, Lanessa?
Yes, absolutely. Because then I think once I can figure this out and put something together for my staff, then it's easier to then condense that and put that out in our community.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't have it done, so I'm not going to share it with you. But I actually have a similar infographic for Sturgis as what I had for the state, and it's specific just to our school district. But like I said, it's not done yet, so I don't want to share it yet.
Will you have it ready by state conference? I might come hunt you down.
Well, it's on my goal, so we'll see. But so the thing is that, utilizing this data, because the governor's CTE grant and the workforce education grant, part of the criteria was you've got to have the data to show that this is a need in your community, in your geographic area. And so, and also, just for local capital outlay requests, having that data and be able to, to back it up to show that, 77% of the students at Sturgis High School take a CTE course provides some relevance to the school board members. So it's a chance to share again, how are you utilizing data, or how do you plan to? Everybody's being quiet.
I don't utilize it very well, to be honest.
Yeah.
So for Colorado, at the state level, we provide that data to our Perkins recipients, but based on the information that they've submitted to us with the same sort of like the year counts that South Dakota mentioned and their data reporting for Perkins. And so we aggregate it all and give it back to them. And then we ask them to use it to help tell us how they need to do the things you've been talking about, how they're going to use Perkins to expand their program, or how they're meeting their targets.
Okay. Do you, in Illinois and in Colorado, does your state staff have meetings throughout the state to help explain the data to people?
In Colorado, we do trainings and we do individual technical assistance to like districts or colleges that have particular questions, but we do general sessions as well.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Kathy from Illinois. I'm relatively new in this role, having just assumed this position since February. And I did get a chance to attend the state conference in Normal earlier this year. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, there was some opportunity to share data, but there was also, I don't know, I guess a bit of an issue with how the data is being collected. So, when we left the meeting, it was sort of suspect as to whether or not we really had good data. And I believe this year they're expecting to be able to get better data.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and that's true too. You brought up a good point that the data is only as good and as accurate as what is entered. And I know that's been a concern brought up a couple of times in South Dakota, is who is entering the data. Is it a CTE coordinator or an instructor, or is it a secretary that may not well, I can't find this information, so I'm just not going to put it in. And so that is a concern. And I, being a geek, I guess, about it is I think it's so important to make sure that someone with a vested interest is the person that's getting the data entered, so that you are getting good usable data that's accurate and useful for planning and improving programs.
Yeah, and I guess I should clarify and say that the one data session that I did attend was really focused around special populations here in the state of Illinois. And I think that's where there was a lot of discrepancy because, to your point, that data was being entered by multiple people at various locations and high schools around the state. And exactly to your point, was there a vested interest on the part of everyone who was involved in the data entry? And that was the big question.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I know sometimes even the program that's being utilized, I've been around long enough to remember a program that South Dakota was using that you'd be right in the middle of entering your data and all of a sudden it would crash and you didn't know if your data had saved or not. And so you'd go back and sometimes stuff got duplicated because, well, I don't see it, so I'm going to make sure it's there and put it in again. And then other times it would show up on your screen, but it wasn't being saved on the server. And so things were getting missed. And I'm really happy to say South Dakota has a very good program that they're utilizing now for that data collection. So that makes a difference too. Well, just some advice that I have for you as you move forward is make sure that you're working cooperatively with your state staff. ACTE staff is fabulous if you have any questions, some concerns. If you're a unified state and you want some help in getting a brochure put together, they have people on staff that's their area of expertise and they can help you with that. I believe there's a small charge if you're not a unified state. But then also work with your school counselors. If you're in a local school district, if you have a testing coordinator. And then, as I mentioned before, the Chamber of Commerce and your Economic Development Corporation, and then also at the state level. And then utilize those local advisory board members as well. Develop a format that works for your school and for your state. Sometimes it's, we want to take the easy way out, like our students do sometimes. And well, I'll just pull their name out and put our name in. But then you find out that things just aren't working for your school. So develop a format that works for you. Never make assumptions. Dig into that data and look for trends. And like I said, even though that one link that I shared with you says look at 2 years worth of data, we go back 5 and 6 years just to see is this a trend we need to be concerned about, or was this just a fluke, or what's going on? Be accurate in reporting and sharing the data, and then make sure you share that data with your stakeholders. Once you've got that put together, let people know what's happening in your programs and in your state. Do you have any other things that we could add to this slide?
I don't think so, but I do appreciate all the information you've shared, Colleen.
You're welcome. It's fun. It made me sit down and look at what I was doing. So, so I have some resources for you. There's an excellent book, Putting Your Data to Work, Improving Instruction in CTE. And Kate, is this still available through ACTE?
Let me check on that real quick.
I believe it is.
Okay. And then if you go to the ACTE website, you can go to the CTE fact sheets, which provides information nationwide and then also by different careers that are emerging or in high demand. The state profiles page ACTE staff works with your state association to put those state profiles together. And then there's also the CTE Clearinghouse, which has a wealth of information related to utilizing data, information on programs, trends nationwide, business and industry context. It's a very good resource. And then take advantage of those professional development opportunities. I attended a best practices conference back in Austin, Texas several years ago. And I sat in on a session by someone from the Texas Department of Education. And she talked about data and how to put it into readable format and digging deeper and looking for trends. And I still have her handout and I still use it. And it was a great conference if you ever have the opportunity to participate in it. And then of course, ACTE Vision is in Las Vegas in end of November, first part of December. So I'm sure there's going to be some sessions on that with data there. And then your regional conferences also provide an opportunity to learn more about what other states are doing. And you can also share what you're doing in your state and learn from each other. And then, of course, your state conferences. Hopefully we'll have some sessions for you there as well.
And Colleen, I did want to confirm that we do have the Putting Your Data to Work book in the Shop ACTE bookstore.
Great, good.
So that's available online for anyone who's interested.
And so then just to wrap up, I just want to go back to our goals. And so the first goal was to better understand what we can do for our school district and programs. That was yours, Lanessa. How'd we do?
Good, because like I said, I've always struggled with getting from our data workshops to the rest of the district and then to the community and beyond. And so this gives me a great starting point. So yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And then how to better use the data and what other data we should be collecting. Kathy, was that yours?
Yes, that was me. And yes, I think we've covered it. I don't think we went too deep into what other data we should be collecting, but I know that's probably reflective of institution by institution. However, I did appreciate how you were benchmarking against the state numbers, which I know we're doing as well, but it just, it's a matter of really getting our arms around it.
Mm-hmm. And with other data, I think, like you said, it depends upon the institution and what you're looking for, but, comparing it to the state, comparing it to non-CTE concentrators, industry certification is a big thing right now, so looking at that. Mm-hmm. You could even go in and, because you had mentioned special education, how are your special education students doing? Those that enroll in CTE compared to those that don't, but then also your CTE, your non-special ed population compared to the special ed. And then Victoria, did we get learning how to use data to paint a picture?
Yeah, I think those infographics and just kind of describing what your process was with the brochures that you were putting together for various stakeholders was really helpful. And I also think that I got some good insights into how to help our recipients here in Colorado, because we do workshops, but it sounds like maybe we need to be training our administrators to be doing their own workshops internally, kind of like what you were describing as your process in your department.
And the one thing that our State Department has been really, really good about is they have paid for our substitutes so that we can hold those data retreats. And
that's a great idea.
Yep, it's very helpful. And we start at 7:30 in the morning, and then we try to be done by 10 o'clock. So we only need subs for a short amount of time. But it's a way that we can just all sit down together at the same time, uninterrupted, and go through everything.
And the idea that counseling staff and administrators, so the people who are advising students about what classes to take and the people who are making funding decisions at the school level are also involved in that process is really important, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so anything else before we wrap up? Kate, is there anything you would like to add?
I just want to say thank you so much, Colleen, for sharing all your resources and all your tips. I think it's been a fantastic discussion. So thank you for hosting, and thank you everybody for participating.
Yep. Thanks for asking me. I enjoyed it. And I believe that my contact info is on the ACTE website. So if you think of a question later on, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'd be happy to help. And I will get all of the data brochures. I'll get those all put together and shared with Kate so she can put those as a link on the page as well.
Well, thanks for doing this presentation for us today.
Thanks, Colleen.